Where did our language originate? Hello, do you understand what I'm saying? Great, that's because we speak the same language. English is now considered a global lingua franca, which means it's been adopted by most of the world as a way for people of different languages to communicate. But this wouldn't have been necessary several thousand years ago, because large parts of Europe and Asia all spoke the same language. And what's more is that we may have just discovered precisely where these people all came from. So let's find out the answers to these questions and more as we ask the question, where did our language originate? Where did our language originate? The English language, which I am presently speaking rather eloquently, did not suddenly appear in the mouths of English folk. Like all languages, it is derived from earlier languages which can be traced back thousands of years. English was a development of the Anglo-Frisian languages spoken by most of the British Isles and parts of modern-day Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands during the early Middle Ages. Its roots are Germanic, having been brought over to Britain by the Anglo-Saxons sometime between the 5th and 7th centuries, supplanting the Celtic languages which had previously dominated the Isles. Damn foreign tongues coming over here and stealing how we do a say-mouth of things, the words. How dare you? Before their British excursion, a common Proto-Germanic language would have been spoken by the Germanic people who migrated around Western Europe and Scandinavia, whose own way of speaking derived from the most widely spoken language family on the planet, the Indo-European language. As you can see from this tree, modern languages as diverse as Spanish, Punjabi, Russian, and Hindi all came from a single language spoken by humans several thousand years ago. Today, the Indo-European branch is responsible for 445 modern languages spoken by 42% of all humans. The languages of Finnish, Turkish, Chinese, and Love all developed separately. But we'll come to those later. Not everyone is convinced that a tree is the best way to display the timeline of languages, since they don't stop taking influence from one another after they've split off from a common ancestor. Instead, languages continue to exchange words and grammatical styles whenever their speakers meet. This is what happened to the English language after the Anglo-Saxons brought it over to Britain. First, the Vikings had their way with Old Lady Britannia and introduced words like snug, nudge, and maelstrom. Then the Normans from France invaded, throwing in terms like mansion, pork, and maternal. It was at this point that the British locals were finally able to describe what happened when they got snugged with their maternal grandmother in the mansion, only for her to give them a nudge in the middle of the night and embark on a maelstrom of pork. Hey, don't judge. Things were different back then. The English language underwent standardization in the late Middle Ages after the invention of the printing press. But then, as the British Empire began to dominate, words were absorbed once more from languages around the world. This process of assimilation affects almost every language, and some linguistic scholars like Alexandre Francois believe that the wave model should be used to more accurately present the influences of different tongues upon one another. As a Frenchman, he should be an expert on such matters, given that his nation invented French kissing. But regardless of how we analyze our modern languages and display their origins, of one thing we are almost certain. All Indo-European languages owe their existence to a single dialect spoken several thousand years ago by the Proto-Indo-Europeans. And, according to recent research, we may have just discovered where these people lived. Proto-Indo-Europeans first existed sometime around the late Neolithic period, with estimates ranging from the 4th to the 7th millennia BC. Maps like this help us understand where the prehistoric inhabitants of Eurasia spread to and when. But the exact origin of this group has remained a contentious topic. Fringe groups believe that Indo-Europeans and their language may have emerged out of Anatolia or India by the Indus Valley civilization. However, the most widely accepted theories suggest that the Proto-Indo-Europeans who came to dominate Eurasia emerged from either the Western Eurasian steppe or the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia. The steppe hypothesis, also known as the Kurgan Theory, argues that Kurgan people spread the Proto-Indo-European language through a series of migrations from their homeland in modern-day Ukraine, Moldova, and Russia. The Kurgans were said to be the first to domesticate horses for human use, and this trait provides evidence for the Kurgan hypothesis. In works published in the Annual Review of Linguistics, Don Ring and David Anthony noted that the Kurgans were nomadic pastoralists rather than intensive farmers, as proven by the lack of agricultural terms in their reconstructed language. This is in contrast to the abundance of words this group had for horses, cows, and wheeled vehicles. Simply put, these guys loved riding horses, driving cattle, and getting animals to pull stuff. They did not like farming, with the invention of agricultural terms explained by the Kurgans' later interactions with the Neolithic farmers, who they found dotted around Europe and Asia. The competing theory suggests that the Fertile Crescent, home to the ancient Egyptians and Sumerians, was the true source of the Proto-Indo-European language. What's interesting is that both of these locations lie either side of the Caucasus Mountains found between the Caspian and Black Seas. Well, I find that interesting, even if you don't. A team from the Max Planck Institute tried to identify whether Proto-Indo-Europeans emerged from the north or the south of the Caucasus, and to do so, they analyzed the DNA of a group of 45 people who lived in the area between 3,200 and 6,500 years ago. Research indicates these people were migrating north, which means they came from south of the mountains, lending credence to the idea that their homeland was the Fertile Crescent. This would date the Proto-Indo-European language as having spread to Europe 6,500 years ago. By contrast, the Kurgan theory gives us an origin of 4,800 years ago, but this is deemed too late by some experts. The Max Planck research is yet to be peer-reviewed, so the precise origin of Proto-Indo-Europeans may therefore remain unknown until further evidence to support either hypothesis emerges. What would really help narrow the search would be some written evidence of this language. But thus far, Proto-Indo-European is entirely hypothetical, with its structure having been reconstructed through the deconstruction of Indo-European tongues. The first attempt at writing in this reconstructed language was performed by August Schleicher in 1868. August, who disappointingly was born in February and died in December, wrote a tale of horses and sheep using PIE as it was understood at the time. In recent years, improvements to how PIE was written and spoken have been based on our further understanding of the language. You may ask yourself, is Jack Daniel going to take a shot at this 1,000-year-old language? You bet your ass he is. You think you get to have a name like that and a voice like this without taking risks? Here goes nothing. Hawa hius me, hochmach nech mest. So gech noch sterkt, so gegrum hockig weckig. So mechrum borum, morum bochunde, home is hekyo bos whale, etc., etc. Wow, those old-timey geezers sure used a lot of phlegm when they spoke. Of course, Proto-Indo-European isn't the only language family spoken by human beings. Afro-Asiatic, Niger-Congo, Dravidian, and Sino-Tibetan are just some of the other major trees which have spawned many hundreds of languages still spoken today. But was there ever a single global language spoken by all of humanity? Some researchers believe so, and we're going to investigate this in our bonus video, The First Language of Earth, which you can watch over at patreon.com/strangemysteries now. For a $2 monthly pledge, you'll gain access to this and over 100 more bonus videos. And you'll also become part of the Strange Mysteries community, where we interact with fans to discuss the topics we want to make and you want to see. Your contributions have a huge impact on our ability to produce mind-bending videos which explore fascinating topics in more depth than ever before. And nowhere is this more evident than in our premium videos, exclusive to our $20 Patreons, where we consult with the scientific community to investigate cutting-edge research before the mainstream media even catches on. If you don't want to donate, then that's bullshit.
We know you wanted more. Strange Mysteries on YouTube and our Patreon bonus videos weren't enough to quench your search for truth, to give you that sense of awe and wonder again, to go past what you thought was the end, to give you the answers you seek, but which only lead to more questions. That's why we just upped the stakes. Chemicals of reality. Reality, consciousness, brains. What else is there? Ask yourself that question. Perhaps that's all there really is but perhaps everything else is found within a place where these ideas, these things, overlap. Some thing, some place that is undefinable. To many people, altering certain chemicals in their brains produces what they would simply call hallucinations. In fact, what we're going to discuss specifically used to be called the businessman's trip, as one could enjoy it. Come down and put your pants back on in the time it takes to eat lunch. It wasn't taken seriously, well, unless of course you started digging. And some people, including us, did. Already though, to many people, this chemical is special amongst others. Very special. To them, it represents something more meaningful and incredible, as if it's the gateway to the next level of consciousness. The ticket to a higher reality barely explored by most humans. It is the entry point to a new reality, visited by only a select few, whose minds have become enlightened through the use of this exotic substance. For this reason, it's commonly referred to as the spirit molecule. But is its reputation as a mystical mind opener deserved? Or is it, and everything it represents, just a load of bullshit? We look at, investigate, and dive deeply into nearly all available research regarding this question, from nearly every angle feasible. And in the course of doing so, stumble upon unexplainable patterns, correlations, and neurological evidence for a reality existing beyond this one. Watch this hour-long Strange Mysteries premium video, Chemicals of Reality, as well as many more to come by becoming an elite premium member of our Patreon at patreon.com/strangemysteries.